Grant Mercer had read the same letters so many times that the paper felt soft at the folds, like cloth worn thin. He knew every turn of the handwriting. He knew where the ink pressed hard when she talked about hope, and where it went light when she tried to sound brave. For 3 months, those letters had been his company through long nights on the Wyoming range, when the wind shook the windows and the loneliness sat beside him like a second shadow. He had built a future from those words. He had built a wife in his mind. And on Christmas Eve, he stood on his porch, dressed like a man meeting his fate. Snow fell heavy and quiet, thick flakes drifting from a gray sky that looked like old steel. The whole valley was white and still. Even the cattle were silent in the pen, their breath rising in slow clouds. Grant did not feel the cold the way he should have. He wore a clean, light blue shirt that made his eyes look brighter, and a black vest that fit his broad shoulders tight. His hands were bare, but he kept them at his sides so no one could see how they shook. He watched the trail that led to his ranch, a thin line through drifts and sage. The stagecoach was late, held back by deep snow, and each minute stretched like a rope about to snap. Then, at last, a dark shape pushed through the falling white. The coach rolled closer, wheels cutting through powder, horses steaming and tired. The driver wore furs up to his eyes, and his voice came out sharp as he pulled the team to a stop. Grant stepped off the porch. His boots crunched loud in the new snow. The coach door swung open, and for a moment he saw only darkness inside. Then a woman stepped down, and then another. Grant stopped moving. They were identical in a way that made his mind stumble. Same height, same face. Same smooth black hair pinned neat under the storm. Same pale skin that looked almost bright against the winter world. Both wore fine silk dresses in deep blue, embroidered with small patterns that caught the firelight from the coach lamp. Both had red scarves wrapped around their necks, the color bold as fresh blood on snow. And both held matching travel cases, lacquered, dark, and careful, like something meant for a city, not a ranch. One of them moved gently, hands tucked inside her sleeves to keep warm, eyes wide with wonder and fear as she looked over the ranch yard. The other stepped down like she had decided long ago that she would not be broken by wind, cold, or men. Her chin was lifted. Her gaze was sharp and steady, like she was measuring the whole place, and measuring him too. Grant's breath caught and hung in the air. The softer one gave a small bow. Her voice was quiet, careful, and sweet. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "my name is Lily Lee. I am the woman who wrote to you. I am your bride." Before Grant could speak, the other woman took a step forward, placing herself slightly in front of her sister as if to block the wind or any trouble. Her voice was firmer, edged with anger she was trying to hold back. "No," she said. "My name is May Lee, and something is wrong. There has been a mistake." Grant stared from one face to the other, feeling like the ground had tilted under his boots. His fingers went to the inside pocket of his vest without thinking. The letters were there, pressed against his chest, warm from his body. 3 months of careful words. 3 months of planning. And now 2 women stood in his yard, both claiming the same story. The driver did not wait for answers. He tipped his hat fast, like a man eager to escape a strange scene and a bad storm. Then he snapped the reins. The horses lunged forward, and the coach rolled away into the snowfall, leaving Grant alone with 2 strangers and the sound of wind. "Please," Grant managed, his voice rough from nerves and cold, "you will freeze out here. Come inside. We can talk by the fire." They followed him across the yard. The red scarves fluttered behind them, bright against the white. Inside the ranch house, warmth wrapped around them, smelling of pine smoke and coffee grounds. The main room was simple, built from timber and work, with a table worn smooth by years of use. The fire popped in the hearth, throwing shadows on the walls that moved like living things. Grant poured tea with hands that would not stay steady. The cups rattled slightly against their saucers, and he hated that the women might notice. They sat close to the fire, their travel cases at their feet. Lily held her cup with both hands, eyes down, as if the steam could hide her worry. May watched Grant without blinking, like she was ready for the truth to turn ugly. Grant swallowed. "In your letters," he said, "you wrote about water. You said it can be soft, but it still wins. It keeps moving until stone gives way." Lily lifted her eyes. May lifted her chin. "I wrote that," Lily said. "I wrote that," May said, at the same time. Grant felt his stomach drop. "And the Lantern Festival in San Francisco," he said, pushing on. "The mooncakes. The story about the little boy who let go of his kite and cried, but then laughed because he believed the sky would carry it." Lily's lips parted. May's eyes narrowed. "That was me," Lily said. "That was me," May said. Grant set the teapot down like it had suddenly become too heavy. "This cannot be," he whispered, rubbing a hand over his face. "How can you both know these things? How can you both be the one I wrote to?" May leaned forward. "Because we are twins," she said, voice tight. "And someone used us." Lily's hands trembled around her cup. "Our aunt," she whispered. "She raised us after our parents died. She arranged the letters." May's jaw clenched. "She did more than arrange them. She forged them. We found copies she kept. She mixed pieces of both our lives. Lily's poems, my work, my plans. She built a perfect woman out of two real ones." Grant stared at them, heart pounding hard. Why would she do that? Lily looked like she might cry. May looked like she wanted to break something. Before either could answer, the front door opened. Cold air rushed in, and snow swirled across the floorboards. A man stepped into the room wearing a heavy fur coat, shaking off white flakes like he owned the place. His smile was thin and mean. Grant knew him at once. Victor Halloway. The land baron. Behind Halloway stood two hired guns, silent as fence posts, hands resting near their holsters. Halloway's eyes went to the twins, and the greed in his look made Grant's skin crawl. "Christmas Eve," Halloway said smoothly, shutting the door behind him. "What a fine night for a bargain." Grant stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "You are trespassing," he growled. "Get out!" Halloway did not move. He only smiled wider. "I am here," he said, "to collect what is owed." Grant's blood went cold. May's cup stopped halfway to her mouth. Lily went still, as if she had turned to stone. Halloway reached inside his coat and pulled out a paper, holding it up by the corner like it was something precious. "A marriage contract," he said, "and a debt." He looked straight at Grant. "Once you marry one of them, that debt becomes yours." Grant felt the letters in his vest like a weight. Outside, the wind pressed against the house, and the fire crackled louder, as if warning them. Holloway's hired guns shifted their feet, and the sound of leather and metal in the quiet room made Grant's heart punch hard in his chest. "Sign the ranch over," Holloway said softly, "or watch what happens to two women who have no protection in this valley." Grant's hands curled into fists. And May Lee stood up, stepping in front of her sister like a shield, her eyes burning as she faced the man who had followed them into the snow. Grant Mercer did not move away from Victor Holloway's stare. The fire snapped in the hearth, and the sound felt too loud in the tight room. Outside, snow kept falling like the sky was trying to bury the world. Inside, the air had turned sharp, full of threat. "You have no right," Grant said, voice low. "Those women just arrived. They have done nothing to you." Halloway smiled as if Grant had said something funny. "Right is what a man can enforce," he replied. "And I enforce plenty." He lifted the paper in his hand again. "Your bride's aunt took a gambling debt in San Francisco. She could not pay. So she offered collateral. She offered the one thing that would make a lonely rancher open his door." Lily's face drained of color. "Our aunt promised she was helping us," she whispered. "She said this would give us a safe home." "She lied," May said. Her voice shook with anger, not fear. She stepped fully in front of Lily, shoulders squared, like she was standing against a storm. "She sold us." Holloway's eyes glinted. "Do not be dramatic. I am not a monster. I am a businessman." Grant took a slow step forward. "If your claim is a debt, take it to court," he said. "Take it to the sheriff." Halloway's laugh was quiet and cruel. Court does not move fast in winter, and the sheriff listens to men with money. Also, these ladies are not in a strong position. He looked at the twins and spoke like they were not human. Immigration laws can be harsh. Without a husband, they are easy to call vagrants, easy to remove. Lily's hands went to her red scarf like she could hold her own throat steady. May's eyes burned harder. Grant felt something in him change. He had spent years alone, working land and cattle, thinking his hardest battles would be against weather and wolves. But in that moment he understood a different truth. Men like Halloway did not just take land, they took people. "You came here to threaten them," Grant said. "Not to collect a fair debt." "I came here to solve a problem," Halloway replied. "You have been stubborn about selling your ranch. This is simpler." He nodded toward the paper. "Once you marry one of them, the debt transfers to you. The amount is enough for foreclosure. I take the deed. You keep breathing. The ladies stay in the valley as workers, if I am in a generous mood." May let out a sharp breath. "We are not property," she said. Halloway's hired guns shifted again, boots scraping wood. One of them glanced toward the windows, then back to Grant, like he was already deciding where to shoot if he had to. Grant's jaw tightened. "Leave," he said. "Now." Halloway's smile did not fade. "Think carefully. If you refuse, you lose the ranch anyway. If you fight me, you lose faster. And if these women stand alone, they lose worst of all." For a moment, Lily looked at Grant with eyes full of apology, like she believed she had brought ruin into his home. Grant hated that look. He hated what it did to his chest. May's hands slid toward the fireplace tools, and Grant saw it. He understood her instinct. She was ready to grab anything heavy, anything that could become a weapon. But May did not attack. Instead, she straightened and spoke with a strange calm. "There is something you do not know," she said. Halloway raised a brow. "Oh?" May bent down and opened the lacquered travel case at her feet. The hired guns tensed immediately, hands tightening near their holsters. Grant's heart jumped, but May's hands came out empty, slow and careful, showing she held no gun. Then she reached inside again and pulled out a roll wrapped in red silk. She set it on the table with steady hands. Lily leaned forward, eyes wide. "May," she whispered, like she was afraid of what would happen next. May unwrapped the silk and unrolled the document. It was a map, drawn with neat lines and marks, written in a hand that looked practiced. A set of hills was sketched beside the valley, a creek line, a claim marker, a note in the corner, signed with a name that was not theirs. "Our father worked as a surveyor," May said, eyes never leaving Halloway. "He helped men lay track, measure land, mark routes. Before he died, he found something in the hills near this valley." Halloway stepped closer, greed pulling him like a rope. "What is that?" he asked. "A gold claim," May said. Halloway's eyes narrowed as he studied the map, his mouth opened slightly, like he was tasting the word. "Gold," he repeated. Lily found her voice. "It is real," she said. "Our father kept it hidden under another name so men like you would not steal it. We came here to find the men our aunt had been writing to and to protect what our father left." Quote. Grant's mind spun. So the letters were not only a trap. The twins had walked into his life chasing safety and truth, not just romance. He looked at them, and for the first time he saw their courage clearly. They had crossed an ocean and a continent with a secret worth killing for. Halloway's face shifted. The smooth smile fell away, replaced by something colder. "That claim," he said softly, "could be worth far more than the debt." May nodded once. "It is worth more than anything you are holding over us." Halloway's eyes lifted from the map to Grant's face. "Then you have a bigger problem than you know, Mercer," he said, "because I cannot allow you to keep that." Grant's hand moved toward the rifle above the mantel, but he did not reach it yet. He knew a fast move could get Lily or May shot before he even blinked. "You will walk out," Grant said, "or you will be carried out." Halloway gave a small gesture toward his men. "Do it," he said. The hired guns moved, quick and silent. One went toward the back of the house. The other stayed near the front door, watching Grant like a predator. Grant's throat tightened. "What are you doing?" Halloway's voice stayed calm, making this simple. An accident is easier than a fight, a tragic Christmas fire. The lonely rancher, a pair of strangers, snow, smoke, and no witnesses. Lily let out a small sound, half a gasp, half a prayer. May grabbed the iron poker from beside the hearth, lifting it like she had been born with steel in her hands. Lily, trembling but steadying herself, snatched up a lantern and a bottle of high-proof spirits from the shelf, clutching them as if they were her own kind of weapon. Grant's eyes flicked to the windows. A faint smell drifted in. Smoke. Then came a sharp cry outside, high and panicked. A horse screaming. Grant's blood turned to fire. "The barn," he muttered. Halloway smiled again, but now it was a dead smile. "Merry Christmas," he said, and the first gunshot cracked through the room, splintering wood near Grant's head as the house began to fill with the smell of burning pine. The rifle shot snapped through the room like a whip. Wood exploded near Grant's head, and the sharp sting of flying splinters forced him to dive behind the heavy oak table. Lily and May dropped with him. The three of them pressed low as the fire cracked louder and smoke began to creep in from somewhere outside. Grant's heart slammed in his chest. He could hear the hired gun near the door shifting his boots, slow and confident, like he knew the house would soon belong to flame and death. Halloway's voice floated above them, calm and cruel. "Finish it," Halloway said. "No mistakes." May's grip tightened on the iron poker. Her knuckles went white. Lily held the lantern close. Her other hand locked around the bottle of spirits like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Grant leaned close to them. "Stay down," he whispered. "Do not move until I say." Another shot cracked. The table shuddered as the bullet hit hard wood and buried itself. Lily flinched but did not scream. Grant saw her lips moving like she was praying, but her eyes stayed open and focused. Grant crawled low toward the kitchen doorway. He knew where he kept the scattergun. He also knew he had only seconds before the smoke thickened, and the men outside found a way in. May followed him, moving like a shadow. "I am not hiding," she whispered. Grant looked at her, anger and respect twisting together in his chest. "If you stand up, you die," he said, "and I cannot protect Lily alone." May's eyes flicked to her sister. Then she nodded once, hard, like agreeing to a plan she did not like. In the kitchen, Grant grabbed the scattergun from behind a sack of flour. The metal felt cold and familiar in his hands. It steadied him. He checked it fast, then slid back toward the main room, keeping low. The front door slammed open with a violent rush of air. Snow blew in. Smoke followed it, thicker now, heavy, with the stink of burning hay. Halloway stood in the doorway like a man watching a play. Behind him, one hired gun kept his revolver raised. The other was not there. Grant realized with a cold jolt that the second man must be outside, feeding fire to the barn and maybe to the porch next. "You cannot hide forever, Mercer," Halloway called. "The smoke will bring you crawling out." Grant's jaw clenched. He looked toward the window. Outside, the night glowed orange. The barn was burning. The fire lit the snow like sunset, bright and wrong. Grant heard the horses again, screaming in terror, and the sound tore through him like a blade. May heard it too. Her face changed. Lily made a broken sound, like she could feel the panic of animals she had never met. Grant's ranch was not just land. It was his life. Those horses were his work, his safety, his future. And now men were burning them like it meant nothing. Grant leaned close to the twins. "If the barn goes, the animals die," he said. "I have to get out there." May's eyes locked on his. "Then go," she said. "We will hold the house." Grant hesitated. Lily looked up at him, fear in her face, but also something else. Trust, a quiet strength that surprised him. "We did not cross the world to die in silence," Lily said, voice shaking but firm. "Tell us what to do." Grant swallowed hard. He pointed to the back door. "If someone comes through there, you run out the side window and head for the creek," he said. Do you understand?" May nodded. Lily nodded. Grant rose slightly behind the table, scattergun ready. He could see the hired gun near the door. If Grant moved too fast, the man would fire. If Grant waited too long, the barn would fall. Then Lily did something Grant did not expect. She lifted the lantern high, and for a split second she stepped into open view near the fireplace. The hired gun's eyes snapped toward her. Grant used that moment. He stood, aimed, and fired. The blast thundered through the room. The hired gun yelped and fell back, clutching his shoulder as he stumbled into the snow. Halloway jumped aside, coat whipping in the cold air, eyes wide with sudden anger. "You foolish rancher," Halloway hissed. Grant did not answer. He sprinted for the back door, yanking it open and disappearing into the storm. The snow hit him like a wall. Wind shoved at his body. The air was thick with smoke, and the barn fire roared loud enough to sound like a living beast. Grant ran hard, boots slipping in deep drifts, scattergun held tight. Near the barn he saw a man moving fast with a can in his hand. Kerosene. The hired gun was spreading it along the wood and the fence line. Grant raised the scattergun again and fired. The man screamed and dropped, falling into the snow and clutching his leg. The kerosene can rolled away, spilling dark liquid that stank sharp even through smoke. Grant rushed toward the barn doors. Heat slapped his face. The doors were hot to the touch, and sparks swarmed in the air like angry insects. Inside, the horses kicked and slammed against their stalls, eyes wild, bodies trembling. Their fear filled the barn like a scream. "Easy!" Grant shouted, voice hoarse. "Easy, boys!" He forced the door wider and pushed through smoke. His eyes watered. He coughed hard. He fumbled with the latch of the nearest stall, fingers clumsy from cold and panic. The horse inside reared, nearly knocking him down. Grant grabbed the halter, pulled, and the animal bolted out into the night. One by one, he opened stalls and drove horses out, into the snow, into any chance of survival. Then a shadow moved near the stable wall. Grant turned. Victor Halloway stood there, face lit by fire, revolver raised. His coat was dusted with snow. His eyes were bright with hatred and greed. "You should have signed the paper," Halloway said. Grant lifted the scattergun, but he was too slow. Halloway's revolver was already steady. "Say goodbye," Halloway whispered. A sharp, high whistle cut through the night. Halloway's head snapped toward the house. Lily stood in the doorway, lantern held high like a signal fire, her red scarf whipping in the wind. She was shouting, drawing his eyes, drawing his aim. Grant saw her lips forming his name, and in that same instant, May appeared above the porch rail like a storm made flesh. She launched herself through the air, red scarf streaming behind her, iron poker raised in both hands. She struck Halloway's arm with all the strength of her rage. The revolver flew out of his grip and vanished into the snow. Halloway roared and swung his fist, smashing it into May's shoulder. May crashed into a drift, breath knocked out of her. Lily screamed and ran toward her sister. Grant surged forward, tackling Halloway hard. They hit the ground in mud and slush, rolling, punching, fighting like animals. Halloway was strong, but Grant was stronger in that moment because he was fighting for more than land. He was fighting for two lives that had been thrown into his home like kindling. Halloway's hands scrabbled through snow, searching for his gun. Grant grabbed his coat and slammed him back down. Then a single rifle shot rang out from the darkness. Grant froze. Halloway's body went suddenly still beneath him. Grant lifted his head, breathing hard, eyes wide as he searched the storm for the shooter. And through the blowing snow, a horse and rider emerged at the edge of the yard, rifle still smoking in the rider's hands. The rider came closer through the storm, the horse stepping careful in the deep snow. Grant's chest heaved as he pushed himself up from the ground, hands slick with slush and soot. The body beneath him did not move. Victor Halloway's eyes stared up at the gray sky, empty now, like all his plans had been snuffed out in one breath. The rider stopped at the edge of the yard. He sat tall in the saddle, coat heavy, hat brim white with snow. 2 more riders came in behind him, shapes in the dark like quiet shadows. "Merry Christmas, Grant," the man called, his voice grim. "Looks like you needed help." Grant knew him, Sheriff Dalton, a hard man with tired eyes who had seen too much trouble for one lifetime. He lowered his rifle slowly, then nodded toward the burning barn and the smoke that curled into the night. "We got a telegram from San Francisco," the sheriff said. "Missing pair of sisters, forged papers, fraud, and a man named Halloway sniffing around it like a wolf. Seems he has been wanted longer than most folks realize." Grant's mind felt like it was moving through mud. "How did you get here so fast?" he asked. Dalton's mouth tightened. "We were already out tonight," he replied. "Some of us don't get holidays. When the message came in, we rode, snow or no snow." Behind Grant, Lily ran to May and dropped to her knees in the drift, arms wrapping around her sister. May was sitting up, wincing, one hand pressed to her side. Her face was pale, but her eyes were still fierce. "We are alive," May said through clenched teeth. Lily's breath came in shaky sobs. "I thought I lost you," she whispered. Grant stumbled toward them, boots dragging through snow, scattergun hanging low at his side. He knelt beside May, ignoring the cold soaking into his pants. "Are you hurt bad?" he asked, voice raw. May's jaw tightened. "I will live," she said. "I do not break easy." Sheriff Dalton swung down from his horse and stepped closer, deputies following. One deputy went toward the wounded hired gun near the barn, while the other moved toward the house to check for more danger. Dalton looked down at Halloway's body and let out a slow breath. "He forced people into corners," Dalton said. "A lot of corners. Tonight he found one that closed." Grant stared at the dead man, then at the flames eating his barn. "My horses," he said, voice breaking for the first time. "Some got out, not all." Dalton nodded once. "We will help," he said. "But first, we secure the place." The deputies moved fast. One dragged the wounded man away from the fire line. The other searched the yard, then returned with Halloway's revolver, half buried in snow. Dalton took it and handed it to a deputy like it was just another piece of trash. Grant stood up slowly and faced the burning barn again. The heat rolled off it in waves, and the snow around it melted into black slush. Sparks flew up into the night, disappearing into the storm like dying stars. Lily rose carefully, still holding May. Her silk dress was stained with snow and ash. Her red scarf was damp, clinging to her neck. She looked like someone who had been thrown into a nightmare and survived on will alone. "I am sorry," Lily said softly to Grant. "We brought this to you." Grant shook his head. His voice came quiet, but it carried weight. "You did not bring Halloway," he said. "Halloway brings himself. Men like him find a way. You just happened to be the bait he tried to use." May looked up at Grant, eyes sharp. "And you chose to fight," she said. "You could have signed. You could have given him what he wanted." Grant looked away toward the burning barn, then back at her. "If I signed," he said, "I would have been alive, but I would not have been a man I could live with." Sheriff Dalton stepped in closer, his face serious. "Grant," he said, "we will need statements. Both of you, too." He nodded at Lily and May. "The San Francisco message said you were being held under false papers. This situation is bigger than just a ranch." Lily swallowed hard. "Will we be sent away?" she asked. The sheriff studied her. His face did not soften much, but his voice did. "Depends," he said. "Depends on what is true and what papers exist." But the telegram was clear. Someone in San Francisco believes you were tricked. That matters. May's eyes narrowed. "Our aunt," she said. "She made us into a story for money." Dalton nodded. "We will send word back," he said. "We will dig into it. Tonight, you are safe here." Grant did not miss the way Lily breathed out, like she had been holding her lungs tight since the coach arrived. By the time the deputies helped beat down the flames, enough to save part of the barn, the night had shifted toward morning. Smoke clung to the yard. The snow was torn up with boot prints, blood and ash. The horses that had escaped stood huddled near the corral, trembling but alive, eyes wide under frost. Grant moved among them, checking legs and sides, speaking soft words the way his father once had. He hated that he could not save them all. He hated the empty stalls, but he also felt something strange in his chest. He was not alone anymore in the ruin. He had help. He had hands beside his hands. When the worst was done, the sheriff and his men took Halloway and the wounded hired gun into custody. Chains clinked in the cold, and the sound felt like justice, even if it did not heal what burned. As the first pale light touched the mountains, Sheriff Dalton stood with Grant near the porch. His breath rose in slow clouds. "The debt papers," Dalton said. "They will not hold." Halloway was running fraud. The San Francisco office confirmed it. He used threats and forged contracts. "You will keep your ranch." Grant's shoulders dropped slightly, like he had been carrying the whole roof of the world. "And the sisters?" he asked quietly. Dalton glanced toward the doorway, where Lily helped May step inside. "They are victims in this," Dalton said. "And there is something else. That gold claim map. If it is real, it changes their lives." Grant looked toward the house, toward the warm light inside. "They risked everything to protect it," he said. Dalton nodded. "Then make sure it does not get stolen again," he said, "because other men will hear the word gold and come sniffing too." When the sheriff finally rode away, the yard fell quiet again. The storm eased. The snow still covered the valley like a blanket, but now the silence felt different. It was not lonely silence. It was the silence after survival. Inside, the fire still burned. The room smelled of smoke and tea. Lily sat beside May, wrapping a cloth around her shoulder. May's face tightened from pain, but she did not complain. Grant stood a few feet away, unsure where to place his hands, unsure where to place his heart. The danger had passed, yet another kind of tension remained, heavier in some ways. Because the truth had not changed. He had waited for a mail-order bride. 2 had arrived. And now, in the quiet of Christmas morning, he had to face what that meant for all of them. Lily looked up first, eyes soft. "Mr. Mercer," she said. "Now that we are safe, we must speak honestly." May's gaze held Grant like a challenge. "Yes," she said. "We must decide what happens next." The room was warm, but Grant Mercer still felt cold inside. The fire burned steady, yet his mind kept replaying the sound of gunshots and the smell of smoke. Outside, the snow lay quiet again, covering the torn yard like it wanted to hide everything that had happened. Inside, 3 people sat in the aftermath, and none of them knew what words could safely be spoken. Lily kept her hands busy, folding a cloth and pressing it gently against May's bruised shoulder. May sat stiff, jaw tight, refusing to show pain even when it pulled at her ribs. Grant stood near the table for a long moment, then sat slowly, like he was afraid a sudden move would break what little peace they had. Lily's eyes stayed down at first, but her voice was clear. "We did not come here to trap you," she said. "We did not know our aunt was using our names like that. When we discovered it, we had 2 choices. Stay and let her sell us, or leave and face whatever waited for us in America." Grant watched her carefully. He had expected her to be soft and helpless because her voice sounded gentle. But now he saw the courage under that gentleness. She had been afraid, yes, but she had not been weak. May spoke next, sharper. "Our aunt wanted to turn 2 lives into one perfect story," she said. "She thought a lonely rancher would pay any price for a woman who could be sweet and brave, educated and obedient, graceful and strong." May's mouth tightened. "She did not care what it did to us." Grant's fingers curled on his knee. "I thought I was writing to one woman," he admitted. "I thought I knew her. I waited for her." He looked between them. "But you both know the letters. You both carry pieces of the same life." Lily nodded slowly. "Some letters were mine," she said. "Some were hers, and some were changed. The feelings were not always lies, though. May's eyes stayed on Grant like she was testing him. The feelings were real, she said. The fear was real. The need for safety was real. We wrote to survive, even when the words were stolen. Grant swallowed. Sheriff Dalton said the debt papers are void, he said. Halloway cannot take this ranch. Your aunt's tricks will not ruin you here. He paused, then spoke softer. And if the gold claim is real, you are not helpless women. You could go anywhere. San Francisco, New York, you could start over. Lily's hands stopped moving. She looked at May, and something passed between them that Grant could not read. It was silent, but deep. The kind of communication only twins could share. May's voice dropped. We have nowhere to go, she said. Grant frowned. But your claim, he said. Your money. Quote. May's eyes flashed. Money does not give you a home, she replied. It buys walls. It does not buy safety. It does not buy belonging. Lily nodded, her cheeks pink from heat and emotion. Our aunt is gone from our lives, she said. We cannot return to her. We cannot return to what we had. And in this valley, we are strangers. People will stare. People will whisper. We know this. Grant felt a tightness in his chest. He had lived through whispers too, though in a different way. He had been the lonely rancher, the man people pitied and joked about. He knew how it felt to be talked about like you were not human. May leaned forward slightly, wincing, but forcing herself to speak. During the fight, she said, we learned something. You could have saved only your land. You could have sent us away, but you did not. Grant's jaw tightened. I could not, he said. Lily looked at him now, eyes shining. Why? She asked softly. Grant did not answer right away. He looked at the fire, at the way it made the room feel alive. Then he looked back at them. Because when I saw Halloway's eyes on you, he said, I felt something rise in me. Rage. Protection. I realized you were not words on paper. You were real people, and I could not let him treat you like tools. May's expression softened for the first time, just a crack. And what about the letters? She asked. The woman you thought you loved. Grant took a slow breath. I fell in love with the writer, he said, with her mind, her warmth, her strength. But now I see the truth. That woman does not exist as one person. He looked at Lily. There is your gentleness. Then he looked at May. And there is your fire. Lily's lips parted like she wanted to speak but could not find the right words. May held Grant's gaze. Then do not choose, she said. Grant blinked. What? May spoke steadily, like she had already decided and was simply revealing it. You do not have to cut one of us out to make a clean story, she said. Our lives have never been clean. We were born together. We survived together. We crossed the world together. Tonight we fought together. Quote, Lily's cheeks turned deeper pink. She looked down, then up again, gathering courage. In our old traditions, she said softly, a man could care for more than one wife. We know America is different. We know the law is different. May picked up the thought without flinching. But the law did not protect us tonight, she said. You did. And we protected you. Grant's throat went tight. Are you saying? He began, then stopped because the words felt too heavy to carry. May nodded once. We are saying we will not be separated, she said. If we stay together. Lily reached across and took May's hand, holding it firmly. We are not trying to shame you, Lily said. We are not trying to force you. We are only telling you the truth of our hearts. Grant stared at their joined hands. He had imagined a simple life. One wife. One path. One kind of love. But nothing about this Christmas had been simple. The woman, in his letters, had been made from two souls, and now those two souls sat before him, alive, brave, and real. Outside, the wind eased. A thin, pale sunlight touched the frosted window. Christmas morning was moving forward, whether they were ready or not. Grant stood up slowly. He walked to the window and looked out at the white yard, at the damaged barn, at the horses huddled close. He thought about the empty years, the long nights, the letters that had kept him alive, The way Lily had stepped into danger with a lantern. The way May had flown at Halloway with an iron poker like she was born for war. He turned back to them. His voice came quiet. "I cannot give you an easy life," he said. "People will talk, people will judge. They already do." May's chin lifted. "Let them," she said. Lily's voice was softer, but just as strong. "We have lived through worse than whispers," she said. Grant felt his eyes burn, and he hated it, but he did not look away. "If you stay," he said, "it must be because you want this home, not because you think you owe me." May's answer was immediate. "We owe you nothing," she said. "We choose." Lily nodded. "We choose," she repeated. Grant took a step closer, then another, until he stood in front of them. He reached out slowly, offering his hands like a man offering his whole future. They both took them. Lily's hands were warm and trembling. May's hands were steady and strong. Grant's voice shook. "Then I offer you my name," he said. "My protection. My heart. All of it." May's eyes held his. "That is all we ever wanted," she said. And in that moment, with firelight on their faces and smoke still clinging to the walls, Grant realized Christmas had not brought him the life he expected. It had brought him a life he could not imagine losing. Christmas morning came in pale and quiet, like the world was trying to pretend the night before had never happened. The storm eased, and the snow on the hills looked clean again, hiding the ash and broken tracks in the yard. Inside the ranch house, the fire still burned, steady and warm, while 3 lives stood on the edge of a choice that would change everything. Grant Mercer did not rush. He did not make promises like a man trying to keep a story alive. He spoke like a man who had nearly lost everything and had learned what mattered most. "You both saved this place," Grant said. "You saved my horses. You saved my life. But I will not keep you here by fear. If you stay, it must be because you want this home, not because the valley is hard and the road is cold." May's eyes stayed sharp, but her voice softened. "We have been used by people who lied," she said. "We will not live under lies again. We want a home where we are not traded like goods." Lily nodded, her fingers still wrapped around Grant's hand like it was something real she could finally trust. "We want peace," she said. "We want to wake up without looking over our shoulders. We want to build something that cannot be taken by a greedy man." Grant looked at them, and in his chest he felt the lonely years begin to loosen their grip. He had waited for a bride like a man waiting for rain. Now he stood with 2 women who had arrived like lightning, fierce and bright, and somehow they had not burned him. They had lit him up. There was no priest that morning, no church bells, no crowded room full of polite smiles. There was only the sound of the fire, the smell of smoke still clinging to the walls, and the silence of a ranch house that had almost become a grave. Grant took a sheet of clean paper from a drawer and laid it on the table. He dipped a pen in ink and wrote simple words, the kind that did not need fancy language. A promise to protect, a promise to share work and shelter, a promise to stand together when the world tried to push them apart. He handed the paper to Lily first. Her hand shook as she signed her name, but her eyes did not look away. He handed it to May next. She signed without hesitation, jaw set like a vow carved in stone. Then Grant signed, pressing hard, as if he wanted the ink to hold forever. After that, they stood by the fireplace. Grant held one hand of each woman, and they spoke vows they made themselves. No one told them what to say. They spoke from the heart, plain and honest. Lily promised to bring kindness into a hard place, and to keep her spirit gentle, even when the world was not. May promised to fight for their home, and to never let fear decide their lives again. Grant promised to never treat them as a bargain or a burden, but as family, and to give them respect in a land that rarely offered it. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The snow glittered. The ranch still smelled of smoke, and part of the barn stood black and wounded. But the house was alive. And for the first time in years, Grant did not feel like he was facing the world alone. In the weeks that followed, the whispers began. People in town had seen the stagecoach. They had heard about the shooting. They had heard Halloway was dead and dragged away in chains. They had heard the word twins. They had heard the word Chinese. And then, soon enough, they heard something even louder. They heard the word gold. Grant did not brag about it. He did not parade the map around like a prize. He took Sheriff Dalton with him, and he took one honest man from town who knew how to mark claims. They rode into the hills where the map pointed, through deep drifts and wind, until they reached the creek line and the ridge with the strange marker stone. They dug where the map said. They found it. The gold was real, not a fairy tale, not a trick. Real metal in the earth, hidden where most men would never think to look. Sheriff Dalton helped them file the claim the proper way, using the proof of the father's work and the map he had left behind. It was not easy. Some men tried to challenge it. A few even threatened Grant, thinking they could scare a rancher into giving up the claim. But May stood like a wall in front of them, eyes cold and fearless. And Lily stood beside her, quiet but unshaken, like water that does not stop moving no matter how hard the stone. Grant watched them, and he understood the truth fully now. The woman he had fallen for in letters had never been one person. She had been a spirit, a blend of gentleness and fire. And now that spirit was real in his home, in two bodies, in two hearts, working side by side. The ranch began to change. The mine brought money, but it also brought danger. Grant set rules. He hired men who would not cheat. He paid fair. He did not let the mine turn into a lawless camp full of drunks and guns. Sheriff Dalton backed him up, because Dalton had seen what greed could do, and he did not want another Halloway rising from the dirt. With time, the Mercer ranch began to flourish. The damaged barn was rebuilt stronger than before. New fences went up. The horses grew calm again, and the house, once silent, filled with life. Lily planted a small garden near the porch. Even in Wyoming soil, she coaxed green things to grow. She brought color back to the yard, like she was teaching the land to breathe again. May learned every inch of the ranch work. She rode hard, fixed what broke, and faced trouble with a steady spine. Men who came to threaten soon learned she was not a woman to frighten. At first, the town did not know what to do with them. Some people stared. Some people laughed behind hands. Some people said it was wrong. But time has a way of testing talk. When a blizzard trapped a family outside town, it was Grant, Lily, and May who rode out with supplies. When a child broke a leg, it was money from the mine that helped bring a doctor through winter roads. When the county needed a small schoolhouse, the Mercer Ranch helped pay for wood and books. When the church roof collapsed after a storm, Grant sent men and nails, and Lily cooked meals for the workers, and May carried beams like she had been doing it all her life. Slowly, the whispers changed. They did not vanish. People still talked. People always will. But the talk grew quieter, and respect grew louder. Because in the end, folks in the West respected one thing most of all: a person who stood by their word, a person who worked hard, a person who did not bend to cruelty. Years passed. The Mercer Ranch became known across the valley, not for scandal, but for strength. Grant was rarely seen without Lily and May beside him, moving in a strange kind of harmony that no outsider could fully understand, but many came to admire. And on cold winter nights, when the wind pressed against the windows, Grant would sit by the fire with the two women who had stepped out of a stagecoach and changed his fate. He would think about the letters, about the lonely man he used to be, and about the Christmas Eve when snow and fire tried to steal everything. He would look at Lily's gentle smile. He would look at May's fearless eyes. And he would know the truth. Family is not always the story the world expects. Sometimes family is what you build with your own hands after you survive the worst night of your life. If you enjoyed this emotional Wild West story, share it with someone. Leave your thoughts in the comments and follow for more powerful Western tales.